Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're actually flipping the script. Instead of talking about why people get tattoos, we're diving into the fascinating psychology of why people choose not to. And trust me, there's a lot more going on there than you might think.
Tattoos are, they're everywhere now, right? It's a super powerful, super mainstream way to wear our stories, our art, right on our skin. But what about the millions of people who consciously look at their skin and decide to keep it a blank canvas? This isn't just a passive, oh, I haven't gotten around to it kind of thing. For many, it's an active decision, and the reasons why are surprisingly deep.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll set the scene with the uninked question. Then we'll tackle the big one, the permanence problem. After that, we'll look at how personality and a bit of prudence play a role. And we'll wrap it all up by rethinking self-expression and what it really means to be the final canvas. Ready? Let's get into it. All right, first up, to really get why someone wouldn't get a tattoo today, we have to start by appreciating just how common they've become. This isn't some fringe subculture anymore. It is woven right into the fabric of the mainstream. Just look at that number, 32%. That's almost a third of adults in the US with at least one tattoo. So think about it. At this point, saying no to ink isn't really the default choice. It's a conscious decision that kind of goes against the grain, and that's what makes it so interesting to look at. And that choice often leads us straight to what is probably the single biggest psychological hurdle for a lot of people, the whole concept of permanence. We're talking about the psychology of making a decision for the rest of your life. For so many people, the fear isn't about the needle or the cost. It's this deep-seated psychological thing called commitment aversion. You've probably felt this before, right? It's that knot of anxiety you get when you have to make a choice you can't easily take back. Whether it's picking a career path, deciding where to live, or putting permanent ink on your body. This quote just perfectly hits the nail on the head. It so clearly captures that core conflict. You're being asked to make a lifelong commitment based on who you are in this exact moment. The fear is that a symbol that feels so right today might feel completely foreign to the person you become in 10, 20, or even 50 years. So you start asking all these questions, don't you? Who will I even be in the future? Is this thing still going to mean something to me? What if my tastes totally change? Or what if I just don't like it anymore? So you see, this is way more than simple indecisiveness. It's a really complex negotiation with a future version of yourself that you haven't even met yet. But hey, it's not always about a fear of forever. A lot of psychological research points to certain core personality traits that are really strongly connected with the choice to stay tattoo-free. It's less about anxiety and more about, how you're naturally wired. And this is where we see a really interesting psychological split. I mean, look at this. Studies consistently find that people with tattoos often score higher on traits like sensation-seeking and risk-taking. But on the other hand, those without tattoos? They tend to score higher in areas like conscientiousness, cautiousness, and what's called a need for cognition, which is just a fancy way of saying they like to think things through really deeply. So let's zoom in on that one term, high conscientiousness. It's one of the big 5 personality traits, and it basically describes people who are organized, dependable, and very forward-thinking. As you can see from the list, they prefer planning things out over just being spontaneous, and they naturally weigh the long-term consequences of their actions, from their career to, you guessed it, permanent body art. Now, this right here is a crucial distinction to make. Being cautious or conscientious does not mean you're uncreative or that you lack a desire to express yourself. Not at all. It just means you have a different approach to how you bring that expression to life. And this brings us to a really important way to reframe this whole conversation. Instead of just a simple yes or no to tattoos, we should be thinking about it as 2 different but equally valid ways of building and expressing who you are. Let's break it down like this. One path is expression through addition, adding permanent art to tell your story. The other path is expression through preservation. For people in this path, their skin isn't just an empty canvas. It's a symbol of openness, of potential, and the freedom to change without being anchored to a decision made by a past version of themselves. And this preservation mindset shows up in a few key ways. It can be practical, like wanting to maintain a certain professional image. It can be philosophical, a deep belief that yourself should always be free to evolve. And for many, it's simply that their main channels for expression are found somewhere else, in their fashion, their hobbies, their incredible achievements, or their personal connections. So, we've explored permanence, personality, and these different paths to self-expression. Now, let's tie it all together and land on the core message of this whole exploration. The key takeaway is this: the choice to remain uninked isn't some story about fear or indecision or a lack of creativity. It is its own rich, complex narrative. It's a story about foresight, about a unique relationship with your own personal identity, and about finding powerful forms of self-expression that go far beyond what's on the surface. And so we're left with this final question, one that really challenges how we think about identity. Is a blank canvas a boring story, or is it a story with infinite possibilities, just waiting to be written? It makes you wonder, does a story have to be written down to be powerful, or is the most compelling story the one that's constantly unfolding inside us?